Hello, playing a new deck today, although one you've probably seen before if you've played much Elder. This is just the Treyst Rossum classic Bravos Bastion deck, playing a lot of things from Reserve, getting his ability online and then just kind of going wild with that. Looking at opening hand, it's not fantastic. Okay, I say that, but I have the Bastion in my hand, it's pretty good. I probably just want to keep these three. I can put Frankenstein into Reserve with Ada and then trigger the Bastion with it. And the Bastion is, of course, just the best card in the deck. So, let's go with that. Turn 1, I think it depends what they do is what I do, but I can definitely see me just putting down the Bastion and saying, good luck. It's an interesting one, because it means my Ada to the left is quite powerful, like it counters them, gets me a free movement, but it does allow me the free kind of breathing room to play the Bastion down. I think I'm going to play this, just use my mana more effectively next turn. Yeah, next turn I can play the Bastion, replay the Ada Lovelace, and put Frankenstein into Reserve, which is quite a good turn. Ooh, Capella. Capella is very good here. Means I can, instead of putting Frankenstein into Reserve, put Capella into Reserve and trigger that, the Ada Lovelace and Capella effect, which, if you don't know, if you actually look at the two cards, they go side by side, they're in the same room. She's operating on the robot. I think it's a really nice detail. So what do I want to put into Reserve? I still really like Frankenstein, but I don't have any good way to get him into Reserve anymore, and as a 4 hand cost thing is kind of expensive. Whereas the Axiom Salvager I can quite easily just play twice. So Frankenstein goes away, even though I'm surprisingly a big fan of the rare version of that card. I think the common version is quite bad, but that change just to a 2 cost, making it well statted for its cost, is quite big. So obvious hope here is they don't have either landmark control or sabotage. Ooh, that's interesting. That's very good. Best of both worlds. So yeah, hopefully they don't have permanent control or sabotage here. Although sabotage I'm much more of a fan of now, and if you don't know, sabotage actually works quite well with Treyst Rossum. Just to explain its ability, if something leaves your reserve, you get a counter, and then when you get 5 counters, you can start using his actual ability, which is you tap him, draw a card, and put a card into your reserve. So it just gives you good constant card advantage while triggering the Bastion. Alright, so they didn't have any answers here. I think they almost definitely would have used them if they had them. So let's just play Lovelace to the right, trigger her ability, do the combo. And notably, you play her from Reserve, so it triggers the Bastion. So I've actually given this deck to a friend locally. And the one thing he struggled with when it comes to this deck is her ability. And it's kind of signposted a bit wrong. You know, you have to put a permanent into your reserve to draw a card. But I think especially in this deck, you won't trigger that effect much. Just the fact that you can put something into reserve is very powerful. The fact that it's a landmark and drawing a card, it's kind of irrelevant. At least I don't use it particularly often. So we see kind of a spicy card, which is Hooked. I don't see this very often, but I think it's an incredibly powerful card. I think it's very easy for even the smallest bit of disruption in Alter to go a very, very long way. But I think disruption like this, disruption that is like tempo neutral, but just like powerful, is better in the late game, like when you're about to win. So I'm going to get rid of it for now. Honestly, there's a very good chance we don't play anything from my hand for a while. We just keep going with like Dr. Frankenstein, Bravos Bastion, these kind of cards. Not my favorite thing to have seen, but it is just stats from Reserve. Although there is a world where I kind of want to put both of these two into play. The reason being is if I play this now, I don't get any kind of like train effect. Like the thing you want to do with Treyst Rossum is just get that from Reserve train running. And this gives me the 4th counter, but I kind of struggle to get the 5th counter. I probably don't get it next turn unless I draw something. So I think I just want to play both of these, guarantee me getting it next turn, rather than just relying on these stats. So yeah, in terms of like decks that see a lot of play, Treyst Rossum is definitely one of, I think, the big 3 to 4 decks. I'm not sure if anyone watching has actually played on the other Altered client, EX Altered. It's a really fantastic fan-made client. I really enjoy it. The music is great. But you can see global stats on their ranked mode, so it's really cool to see what people are playing. And one of the decks that I see a lot of people play is 1, the Sigma deck. Just a very solid, very powerful deck. 2, this deck, the Treyst Rossum deck. And 3, just Fen good stuff Lyra deck. So no one's moving this turn, which isn't fantastic, so I can put this here to get a movement. Oh wait, they're moving this turn. Oh, I can't count. I put this here to counter there too, but I just didn't see that they had 3. That's entirely my bad. It's not too relevant, but like I was gonna play them both anyway. Alright, get rid of this, and that means next turn we can just play both of these from reserve. They both resupply. Probably just play this one and then play whatever gets resupplied. Or draw these 2. Neither of them are particularly good right now, but Art of Lovelace definitely has the better effect from hand. Nothing else, just cheaper. Playing the top side of Dr. Frankenstein is very painful. And that's the non-rare version as well, which is not even great from reserve. So let's get this train started. I'll put this here because it contests both of their relevant elements, and we get a boost. That's a good one to see. Bit of a question between these two, which I play. I think I just play the Foundry Armorer. Get a lot of stats into play. This card is kind of amazing. You get, especially if you have a Bastion out, you get 5 stats for 3 mana, which is like, I think 2 above the mana cost is when it starts to get really powerful. Alright. Yeah, let's just play this here, contest them in all the relevant stats, and put the robot on the other side to contest the trooper. So I talk a lot locally with the people who play this game about how Altered is kind of a zero-sum game. And what that means to me is that basically, if you have 10 power, that's a lot of power. It's very scary. It's terrifying. But if I have 11 power, your 10 power doesn't matter at all. Like, it does not matter. Let me just read this one quickly. So when you play from discard, you get a token in each one. At dusk, you may pay 1 to give something fleeting. Completely fine versus my deck. You'll notice that almost everything I play has fleeting, and you can discard it to create a token. That seems, honestly, maybe worse than the base one. I'll come back to that zero-something in a second. Let me just quickly play out my turn so I don't leave them waiting. Probably could have played that in the inverse way, but I played this and played it out and then activated that. In the end, it doesn't really matter. This, yeah. In fact, this is actually kind of a great example of what I mean by zero-sum game. They have a lot of very good, powerful things at the moment. Like they 6-4-5 over here, very good. 1-1 over there. They have very good stats, but I'm beating them in a lot of places. Like I had to play that out just to stop me from moving forwards. And this is why, like, at the moment in the meta, I think just strong stat decks are winning out. Like, you can be doing tricky things, you can be doing cool things, have a lot of control, have a lot of like weird interactions. But at the end of the day, if you can just put a lot of power into play, kind of blank your opponent's ability to play the game. I think the number one example I have of this is the Ordis Bastion monolith, which is just everything you play has a counter on it. And what that kind of means for the game state is that for the rest of the game, you just can't. What do I want to do? Let's do this. It just means for the rest of the game, if you're spending the same amount of mana on the same creatures, you're winning because you get a extra power on each creature. so you will just always win. And the same thing applies for Bravos Bastion, except it's cheaper. The downside is like you got to play things in reserve, but something like Treyst Rossum makes that trivial. And I think it's a really hard thing to grasp, and I think it's a really hard thing to kind of accept to a certain extent. Like, it's not the funnest idea in the world to think that your cards are always going to be worse just because your opponent has one permanent out. I think with that in mind, I think permanent control is really important. Let's play. Kind of have a turn at the moment since they have they played this turn, so I kind of have a moment to try and build up momentum to counter that. Honestly, I think they probably played this a bit too late. They're behind. They can't afford the negative tempo. And that's, I think, the other side of these like zero-sum cards is they kind of make you win for the rest of the game, but for the turn you play them, you lose probably 2 advances. And it's, can you come back from that deficit? Now, honestly, the answer is probably yes, especially with Bravos Bastion and a lot of the time with the Monolith. But it's the biggest concern you have playing decks like these. Oh, this deck is honestly disgusting. Look how much free power I'm going to get out this turn. Do I even need to play anything else over here? Yes, I do, but barely. I don't know. That was kind of a long rant about game design and about how I see Altered, and it's probably not that interesting to listen to, but I think it's just an important thing to keep in mind. Like, you can be as strong as you want, but if your opponent is stronger, it just doesn't matter. Which is why decks that are just very, very no-brain big stats see a lot of success. I think that'll probably change the more Altered develops and evolves as a game. The new set just got announced, which I'm really excited to see what they do with that. But at the moment, I think there's a couple decks that can cheat more stats into play than all the other decks, and they're very scary and powerful for it. I just have this in the deck to fill space. It doesn't trigger that often, and even as a 3-mana 3/4/4 from reserve, it's not particularly strong. I think when you do get it online, it's kind of backbreaking, but it's often not worth spending the time on it. This game's probably pretty over. I'm like so far ahead and I only need to win 1 for the rest of the game. So as long as I just kind of vaguely split their attention, I'll very quickly take advantage here. And I think the best way I have of doing that is doing this turn. With the help of the Bastion, it puts me ahead on the right-hand side, and I can put the bug over here to be ahead on the left-hand side. Being on match point as like the person not on match point is such a back-breaking experience because you're just playing like so much not to lose. Like, you just can't afford to do anything that isn't incredibly like tempo positive. Definitely this one. Yeah, the way I like to play from this position is just always make my, like, if I make every action threaten to win the game, then they have to just constantly play reactively, and eventually that just lets me win somewhere else. Like, right now they have to play the left-hand side not to lose, and then I can make my next action on the right-hand side. And they're just kind of stuck in kind of a death loop here. Now, honestly, they have... What's this? Big is what it is. Let's keep up the same momentum. So this here makes me winning on grass. They have to fight that off, and then this can come back and win on earth on the left-hand side. Yep. Terrifying, but fortunately more terrifying. Like I said, you can have the biggest stats in the world, but if your opponents are bigger, it does not matter. And I think, honestly, both of our decks being able to put out this, like look how big the stats are. They're almost like 20s on everything across the board. On turn 8, that's kind of ridiculous. But here we both are. Why, like, sometimes in this game, it can feel like, even if you're doing quite well, you just can't compete against, like, the big boy decks like this. Anyway, GG. Let me pull up the deck. So here's the deck. Like I said, it's kind of a mishmash of everything. We're running, you know, like a couple Anaris, again, still split between the Kickstarter and the non-Kickstarter version. A couple Frankensteins. Honestly, the only card that I have that really supports the archetype is the 3 Bastions. If I didn't have that, this probably wouldn't be a good deck, but once you get those, you can kind of just put everything in your deck that has a has a from reserve symbol on it, and you're kind of good to go. Deck is gross. I think it's a little bit boring, but honestly, you should probably be aware of the deck and know how it plays if you kind of want to compete at the moment. I think the best answer to it, if you're looking to verse it, is deal with the Bastions. Like, it might be gross. Honestly, landmark removal is a little bit hard to get your hands on. Even if you're doing something kind of very tempo negative, like spending 4 mana on banishing gating Bastion, you just have to do that. You just have to take that negative card and mana advantage, otherwise you will just lose the game. The main advantage from this deck comes from the fact that this triggers once per character, and you'll generally play 3 or 4 characters a turn between your ability and just them all being really small guys, oftentimes giving you card advantage on their own. So yeah, you just need to get rid of this, since it basically reads you get 3 to 4 extra boosts a turn. Overall, deck is very strong, kind of fun to play, and it's terrifying to verse. If nothing else, this is kind of a PSA on how this deck works. I hope you have a good day, and I hope you probably don't verse this deck, otherwise you might not have quite as good a day. Anyway, thank you for watching.